start into the first slide with full introductions to the team that you have on the line. So as you saw on the right-hand side there, my name is Will Biddison. I'm joined by Jana Bachelder, who is my inside sales rep, as well as our technical team, Kristen Apgar and Chris Challenger, who will be providing the demonstration and the follow-on solution overviews for everyone on the line today. We're also joined with our solution partners at Hewlett-Packard, including Axon Santos and Mark Smith today. We're going to turn over to Kristen in just a moment to provide an overview of HP's Quality Center and ALM that many of you are probably already familiar with, so we want to highlight some of the solution capabilities with it, as well as what's new in the latest and greatest version, and how that might help your organization achieve some of the goals that you're looking at today. Please feel free to contact us additionally if there's anything that you did not see during our demonstration today that you would like a deeper dive into. Please feel free to contact Addison or myself in order to set up a time where we can provide you a detailed walkthrough catered to the organization's challenges that you may be facing. Without further delay, I'm actually going to turn it over to Kristen Apgar.
So coming out of today, the goal of today is for you guys to get your hands on ALM 12. So if you're existing customers or if you're brand new, the content of today is to give you the foundation of what you need. So if you would like a free trial or sandbox environment to try it out or to take existing projects and import it, or if you're brand new to it, to try it out, that you're armed to go forward. So coming out of today, besides the follow-up webinars, we also want to give you access to a sandbox environment for 30 days. So we can get into that at the very end. So I've got a few slides here. This is a great reference deck. These will be available to you. So again, good reference information. So I will go through them, and then probably the last 15 minutes I will spend in the new product, and I'll talk about what's new. So if we get into ALM market space, what we're seeing, and when we talk to our customers, is exponential increase in the amount of applications they're having to support. This is not new to you guys. You understand that. So why I even talk about this here is because everything new going into ALM and HP's products is designed to help you accommodate the complexities of what you're facing today. So HP understands. They understand what you guys are having to deal with. The quantity of apps you're having to support, and the complexity in terms of apps being services now. They're not just standalone. They're basically composite applications that you're having to share resources across. So all of this makes your guys' job very, very challenging. And so you've probably heard of the shift left, right? And so this whole concept, the ALM functionality you're going to see, we'll discuss it a little bit. It's designed to give you more time so you can test more efficiently. So when we get into this, what we're really trying to do is make you guys better at your job. So what we want to remove the barriers between dev and QA. We want to remove and make collaboration between business and QA a lot easier. We want to make the application, you have information, throwing it over to ops, we want to make that seamless. So all of those handshakes become cumbersome and time-consuming. And so, like I said, all the new features and functionalities are starting to address these issues. So a high overview. Okay, so for you folks who've been using the product, bear with for a couple slides. These are for the new folks. So this is the HP stack. This is a little bit of an older slide, but it summarizes it well. And this is where we sit when we're talking about today. So quite a few products out there. And the nice thing about HP is it's very comprehensive and it's designed for the enterprise. And we're going to get into why that's important and when we get into integrations and handshakes between different groups. But this is where we sit today, and this is where we're focused today, is the application quality management area, requirements management, and we'll talk about development management, and then we'll just mention performance information as well. So that's where we are. So when we get into ALM, so HP Application Lifecycle Management products, this is what we are working with. This is the process. It fits within or sometimes supersedes the software development lifecycle. But essentially, what we start to do is accept requirements from the business, right? Whether those be agile user stories, whether those be traditional waterfall, however that business is handing off requests or work efforts to you. We accept those requirements. We usually translate them into some sort of business specs, and then we translate them into development efforts and QA testing efforts to our QA testing framework. So in ALM, we're not only capturing requirements, we're obviously capturing test cases, executing test cases, and then logging defects around that. And why I bring that into play is because this traceability between requirements and QA is very important. You guys have used the tool. There's lots of repositories out there. I mean, there's SharePoint. Lots of people use SharePoint. It's this traceability between requirements and the testing assets that truly give you the information you need to do your job. This middle area is relatively new. Now, it didn't come out with ALM 12. It's referred to as ALI, which we'll get into. But it came out, I think, with version 11. This offers a new level of traceability as well. So this is traceability of what you're doing in dev back into requirements and back into tests as well. So we'll get into that. I really like to highlight that because even if you are using the tool, not a lot of people use this ALI traceability feature, which is free with the tool, but there's a tremendous amount of value that comes out of it. And so from a high level, right, we have this repository, we have traceability coming out of all the information being stored in there. So now we can do project planning and tracking. And again, I mentioned whether you're agile or traditional, that is the nice thing about HP is we're agnostic and we can accommodate both. And then at the bottom, we can start to standardize on our process. We can start to generate reports so you understand your progress and you understand the quality that you're delivering. So this is a good reference slide. If you haven't used ALM before and you are having to justify or understand the benefits, this is it in a nutshell, right? So besides the repository, besides traceability, it basically becomes a central hub for parts of your ALM process or your software development lifecycle process. But when we get into it, it enables the whole process from setting up your releases and your cycles, whether they be releases or sprints or iterative processes with waterfall, through requirements management capture, as I mentioned. A lot of times customers are coming to us, they've been doing this with traditional waterfall, and now they're doing agile, and that's fine. ALM can integrate with most of the agile task management solutions out there, whether it's HP's Agile Manager or it's the other niche players out there. And what happens with this integration is the user stories that are being defined in the dev tool actually get synchronized into ALM as requirements. And so now your testing and your dev are working on the same requirements and they sync up. And so that's a deeper dive conversation, but that's a very important level of traceability. And so that's kind of what, if you're moving to Agile, or if you're looking to accommodate Agile, that's how that works. And of course we have our tried and true core functionality, generating our test cases, right, our testing framework off of those requirements, whether it be manual, whether it be automated, whether they are performance tests. We have varying degrees of types of tests that we store and capture in here, and then executing those tests as well. So some of the new functionality that came out a previous version ago was the ability to manage all of our testing hosts. So with virtualization, right, you can have a tremendous amount of virtual machines out there. Instead of managing all this through Excel spreadsheets, now one of the modules that you'll see when we get into the solution allows you to manage those different hosts out there. And so now when you're ready to kick off your tests, you can do it all through virtualized environments if you need to. And I'll expand on that when we get into the what's new on the Performance Center side. And of course, defect management. Once we find defects, We log them in here, and then, of course, go through the triage, capture all the information that Dev needs to see, and then remediate the defect. So besides traceability, being able to extract information you need to tell you where you are in terms of your progress and your quality is very important. So like I said, there's lots of repositories out there. SharePoint is a great one. And customers who've never used ALM or a tool like it tend to use an email, and they tend to use a SharePoint-type system. And so when they get in starting to use ALM, the quantity of reports and graphs and dashboards available to them is amazing. And so the main reports that most customers tend to use are reports that tell you the progress, right? So if you're capturing requirements, you can determine the progress of your QA against those business requirements. So you can see you're using Agile Speak, burn up, burn down, as your requirements are being executed, the tests associated with those requirements are being executed, and then that status is being updated, and we'll get into that. And so that tells you immediately the progress. Okay, so we have 50 requirements. 30 of them have failed. 10 of them have a no coverage status, and the last 10 have passed. So right there, you can tell your progress. You are not making a lot of progress. If it's swapped, then you can tell. Hopefully, you're at the end of your life cycle. Yeah, we're at the end. We're meeting our requirements. Our tests are passing. And so then you move into your quality graph. How many defects? What's our defect uncovery rate? What's our defect closure rate? Right. So our progress is great, but what's the quality that we're delivering? So two key types of information from reporting and graph boarding capabilities. So this is the new mode, or this is how ALM fits now, kind of in the new life cycle of software development life cycle, or ALM. And as you are having to deliver a tremendous amount of apps, and as your apps are becoming more complex because they're services and they share, this picture gets more and more complex. The ALM sits in the middle here, and it's designed to do that. And so whether you're doing Agile, whether you're using dashboards to report your progress, whether you're doing security or performance, your dev information is going to be coming into here to give you some traceability, right? Your business analyst, instead of creating requirements in Word documents in Excel, we're going to be doing it in Agile Task Solutions or in ALM itself. And then when we actually get into testing, whether it's a manual testing or whether it's automated testing, we're going to be sitting in the tools that have integrated within ALM for decades now. And so when we start to get into these specific integration points, we start with Sprinter, because it tends to be, most people start with requirements. So you've got your requirements. Now we're going to go ahead and start documenting our tests, and that documentation usually is in the form of a manual test or exploratory test. And so this is where Sprinter comes into play. If you're new to the ALM stack, or you are not on version 11 or later, Sprinter was introduced in version 11, and it's free. It comes with ALM or Quality Center. I use those two terms interchangeably. And it's designed for manual testing. So it's designed for exploratory testing. HP has been doing testing for a couple decades now, and they know that there are aspects of the testing cycle that it's just harder to automate. And so kick off your manual testing or your exploratory testing in an interface that makes sense. And then when you need to, you can convert them to an automated test with UFT. So Sprinter is a deeper dive conversation that we can do as a follow-up as well if you are not looking at it or have not looked at it. Why HP created a new interface? A couple of reasons, right? So if you're doing manual testing, you are having to deal with Excel spreadsheets, with the steps, the application under test, the Snagit, a recorder, things like that, really cumbersome. So all of that functionality has been added to the interface of Sprinter. So now you can see the steps we've already documented. I can minimize them. These tabs really maximize your real estate. of your screen, so it's far less cumbersome. Under the run control, you have the ability to create little macros or data injection points. So a form you need to fill out, but you're not testing. It's easy to populate with data. And then they've added some a little bit more advanced technology, similar to what we see in UFT. So in UFT, you create a test and you can run it, across 10 different hosts all at the same time. Same with Sprinter. So now with Sprinter, I can manually run through in one environment my steps and mirror those same steps across different virtualized environments. So now I'm checking maybe Windows 7 and Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 or different versions of the browser or different browser types, and it's doing a comparison. So really helping you to increase your manual testing. The one other thing about Sprinter is with this latest release, so release 12, it includes mobility. So now with mobile applications, a lot of people have one or two devices, right? You get your app, you get your website up, and you're like, okay, I've tested out 2 devices, we're great. But we all know that's not quite right. So now Sprinter actually allows you to go in and interact with your mobile devices and test on as many devices as you guys support. So that's something we can dive down into as well. When you're ready to automate, when your application is ready to automate, you move into UFT. And so again, UFT has been supporting mobile for, I believe, 2 versions now, since maybe 11 or 11.5.2. So besides its tried and true environments that it supports, so everything out there from Oracle, SAP, to the older terminal emulator, now it's still keeping up with the market with mobile support as well. And so the nice thing about these integrations with HP products is you can start with a Sprinter test, right? It's manual, it's not ready to be automated yet. When it's ready to be automated, you convert it and you make it a unified functional test, and then you can go in and do record, replay, or descriptive programming, or however you tend to do automation. And last but not least, I had mentioned this before. Agile, just about every customer I talk to is accommodating Agile in some way. They're hybrid, they're Scrum, they're Kanban, and so I threw this slide in here to really emphasize that ALM, it can be used to store your user stories, right, if this is where you want to kick them off. But most of the time, development teams have some sort of Agile task management solution out there. And so this integration at the requirements with those user stories is seamless. And so information now can be synchronized back and forth from the requirements level and at the defects level as well. And so that's something we can do a deeper dive as well. So that's another integration that's become very, very important besides manual testing and automated testing. And the 4th level of integration that the QA usually has to deal with is dev. So dev has a number of tools out there, right? Whether they're waterfall or agile, it doesn't matter. They might have TFS, they might have Jenkins, the version, have a number of tools out there. And the nice thing about HP is, again, we don't care. We don't care what framework you're using. We don't care what process you're using. We don't care what tools you're using. But we do want to bring in and integrate out of the box with the tools you're doing, so that when you run a build, so that when you commit changes to your source code, we can see how that traces back to the requirements that we're working on. A lot of people say, well, why? What does that information provide to you? Well, it allows you to understand where development is in their process and the complexity of changes that are coming down the line. And when we get into the demo, I'll kind of highlight the information that you look at to determine that. So this was the focus of the new features in the Apps 12. Now these 5 items span across ALM and Performance Center. So when I get into cloud testing, we won't demo that today. That's something in a latter webinar. But this is what I'm referring to, those hosting machines being virtualized. Now we're extending that out to something like Amazon, right? So you can, during a performance test, you can spin up a a virtualized load generator as part of the scenario. This is something I am going to highlight very closely in the demo. Remarkable user experience. So if you are familiar with the tool, you are familiar that we've been pretty dependent on IE. This is changing. So now ALM supports IE, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, just about the most major browsers out there. And of course, I've highlighted the mobility aspects as well. Continuous testing is that shift left. So that's something that's been a part of the product for a while, but they're continuing to add it by supporting newer environments as it comes out. And then, of course, the flexible delivery is the SaaS, being able to do on-premise or SaaS. Like I said, the new user experience is probably the most noticeable change from the previous versions to this version. When we come in here and come into this landing page here allows me, this has been a typical landing page for a while, but there's something new in version 12, and this is this ALM web client. And this is our ability to get off, this is because I'm on the latest version of IE, so I'm going to open up Chrome. This is the ability to get off our dependency on IE. So now I can come in through Chrome, I can come in through Firefox, and I can get access to some of the functionality available in ALM. And this has been a request that customers have been asking for a while, not to have to use IE, right? To be able to access this through Safari or Chrome or Firefox. And so if we look at this here, I've got a couple filters in place, so let me clear out those filters. There's a couple new things here, and this is one of those new features that is going to extend the product out to the business. So a lot of times customers still receive business requirements through user stories or through Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. But because now we don't have to download those ActiveX controls and they can access requirements through any browser, business analysts can come in here and actually generate the requirements through here. And to extend that even further, we have our traditional requirement hierarchy over here. So if you're relatively new to the product, basically we have parent requirements, right, and sub-parent and then child level. And then the requirement, here's a flight ticket requirement, and we capture information over here. So that was a very typical way of storing requirements. Well, if you move into this new author view, this is a new feature of ALM 12. This is how most business analysts prefer to generate requirements, is more of a Word document view. And so you can see it translates it. So it takes this hierarchy over here, and you can see the flight tickets. If I move to online travel booking, you can see that here. And it sets up this hierarchy automatically for me. And I can come in here, and I can edit to my heart's content, and it updates this over here. So many times with customers who interact with the business to get these requirements, when I show this new feature, there's quite a bit of excitement out there. So this new interface, right, this lack of dependency on IE, the author view, allowing that, those are all some of the new features that are really trying to alleviate the handshake between the business and QA and get rid of some of that redundant documentation. So that's one example. If we move into the more traditional interface, so I still go through and authenticate my same way. If you're familiar with the look and feel of the product, you can see it looks a little different. But on our left over here is our standard modules. But with the ALI, or the Dev Management piece, we have a new module over here. So when I come in to requirements, I have my standard traceability that I've talked to you guys about here, right? This not covered, that is coming from our tests. That means this requirement has no tests. Great. So the second level of traceability from Dev now gets displayed here. So now not only do I can figure out where we are in terms of QA, but I can figure out where we are in terms of dev. So at this requirement level, I can see how many unit tests are associated with it, the coverage, so the percentage of unit tests covering code. I can see how many lines of code, how many files. Right, all of this gives me an understanding of the complexity of development and how, if they've done unit testing, right? They haven't done any unit testing, so I better make sure that my regression testing has got adequate time for this. I can also take a look at any changes that have happened over time and the developers who are committing against this. So another level of traceability that gives you an understanding of progress, complexity, and quality that you're delivering. This information I can look at from a less macroscopic level too. So I can take a look at all the builds coming in. I can see the latest build and what was delivered with it. I can also see the commit lines as well. But those were some of the features I wanted to highlight.